Anyone who observes Sanchez knows that he's finished, that he doesn't have much time left. Even in his deteriorated state of health, and that he is capable of anything. And the Kingdom of Morocco knows that too. And Donald Trump. What has to happen will happen sooner rather than later. And I ask, who would defend the autonomous cities of Ceuta and Melilla, which have never been Moroccan in their history, so that they remain Spanish? Who?
What really bothered me a bit was the way they approached me. From some people who said they were from Maria Corina's team, probably Venezuelan exiles who have been here in Spain for a while. And they more or less contacted me by phone through some mutual Venezuelan acquaintances that I also knew. And almost like the typical scam where they start buttering you up. Oh, Marcos, what you're doing and how important it is and all that. Besides, Maria Corina really appreciates this. She would love to be able to greet you. There's going to be a cocktail party on the 19th, so you have to come and be there and all that. And after all that, after that so-called invitation, then they come out with it. Well, on the other hand, it's because we need to, since there's money to cover expenses for this trip. And within this, for example, the rental of some armored Mercedes cars for transportation during these days around here. And so, well, this here could amount to about 10,000 euros, which we would appreciate from you and so on. And so, of course, I said, well, does Maria Corina know about this or what? Because they were also talking about the Washington team that she has. I said, well, the Washington team doesn't have 10,000 for the armored cars. She came here without having them hired. I'm a little surprised. And then I hesitated. And once I hesitated and all that, they stopped inviting me, no cocktail or anything. It was basically just, they pay 10,000. You attend a cocktail party with thousands of people, and I don't know how many others they may have tricked.
And that's very significant. The Communist Party authorities, that means that it's falling apart. Remember that the FBI is already inside Cuba. I repeat, the FBI is inside Cuba working, which probably means things are much more advanced than we think, because I never imagined that Cuba would hand over one of their own, because that individual is one of their own, whom they had been protecting.
This is the national priority. We have been applying criteria against our fellow Spaniards for years. Criteria that sometimes amount to discrimination. They are nothing more than discriminatory measures. It seems that if you're Spanish, you can't be poor. If you're Spanish, you can't have difficulties. And that's completely false, because we all have friends or relatives who have been in situations like these and who are discriminated against by the legislation, the current one, backed by all the parties. I mean, not just the Socialist Party.
If I say Feiju specifically, he doesn't have the guts to deserve becoming prime minister.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.
Welcome. How are you, insiders? Thank you for holding the line, whether we're here or not, for taking part, for sharing information, for sending us lots of audio messages, and also leads to follow some of the corrupt people we're looking for. Thank you for being part of an army of people who think freely and who almost never believe the official version of things. Thank you for being there. Look, we've known for a long time that a dictator rules Spain, a criminal organization. They came to line their own pockets, not to improve the country. And they even deceived their own people at the polls, who made them secretaries general. We knew it from the beginning. They still have people who support them in exchange for money or just pure indoctrination ideology. Look, in Cuba, they're starving, but they still shout, homeland or death, some of them, very few, luckily. Here in Spain, this situation will end someday, but before that happens, we have to prevent our country from ending up destroyed, because those are the intentions of Pedro Sanchez. He has a plan, and it's to survive far from Spain. That's why he holds international meetings looking for a graceful way out from here. He knows that when he leaves Moncloa, he will face the dock to the trials, to the multiple cases of corruption that surround him, to countless crimes he can be accused of. And he will have to flee to a country that possibly has no extradition treaty with Spain, with whatever government is in power at that time. Very different from Zapatero, who started making deals and earning millions. In the case of Sanchez, there's no turning back. Therefore, a scorched earth operation is underway to destroy whatever they can, to stay in power a little longer and secure their future. To do this, he tries on one hand to break up Spain with the help of Catalan and Basque separatists. In the end, he will give them a consultative referendum, which they will say is constitutional, and they will end up looking for a formula for independence with Sanchez. That is more than possible. But the worst part is what's coming next. With Ceuta, with Melilla, and with the Canary Islands. We've been for years warning them that there is a plan, telling you that Morocco is going after it, that it wants to occupy those places that have never been Moroccan. Despite the institutional propaganda, and now we even know what arguments Sanchez is going to use to give that part of Spain to another country. Look, there's a plan, and worst of all, the United States supports it. They're going to support Morocco so it can gain sovereignty over Ceuta and Melilla, and later over the Canary Islands. The White House has prepared a report overseen by Donald Trump. After the snubs he has received, many from Sanchez and the Spanish government, and there are advisors from the White House and the Pentagon who are directly asking for control, total control of the Strait of Gibraltar, and that includes Ceuta and Melilla. The main of these advisors, the most dangerous one. It's this man you're about to see, Michael Rubin. He was an advisor at the Pentagon. There's an article, and you can see it on screen, in which it directly says that Morocco should send a new green march to Ceuta and Melilla. I'm reading it word for word. Sanchez should live up to his anti-colonial rhetoric and put an end to the occupation of Africa. He compares this situation with what happened with Western Sahara in 1995 and how we abandoned those Spaniards in the famous Green March. And he adds, I quote, "The Moroccans should regroup, send bulldozers to the border, and enter Ceuta and Melilla unarmed to raise the flag." He talks about the people of Melilla and Ceuta as colonists. It's obvious that this man either has no idea about history or everything he writes is pure manipulation. He talks about a military attack by Morocco against Ceuta and Melilla and the Canary Islands and says it would be legal. I'm reading verbatim. Neither Ceuta nor Melilla nor the Canary Islands would provoke a response from NATO. In the same way, NATO would not have to respond to an attack against Hawaii or Puerto Rico. This comparison is absurd because Puerto Rico is a state associated with the United States. Canary Islands, Ceuta, or Melilla have never been states, no. But it doesn't matter. The main argument is Spain has colonies. They believe that Ceuta and Melilla are colonies, that the Canary Islands too, and that they should return to whom they once belonged. But look at how serious this is. The thing is, they're right. Ceuta and Melilla are not under the umbrella of NATO. It's as ridiculous as it is accurate. When the Spanish territory that NATO had to defend was defined if it was attacked by any foreign country, Ceuta and Melilla were excluded because they were on African soil in African territory. What does it matter, right? And the Canary Islands are surrounded by water. What does that have to do with anything? Yes, for the Canary Islands, that's true. NATO would supposedly protect it, yes, if there were an invasion, but Ceuta and Melilla, no. That has left them always in an even more vulnerable position because of our monarchy. King Don Juan Carlos allowed for the Sahara to be occupied after promising the soldiers who were there that this would not happen. His friend Hassan II and he closed the deal. And I'm very much afraid that King Felipe VI will comply with whatever Mohammed VI says and whatever Pedro Sanchez says. The proof is that in all the years he has been king of Spain, never, not even once, King Felipe VI has set foot in Ceuta or Melilla because Mohammed or Sanchez forbids him, or maybe both. Gentlemen, the plan of the despot who rules Spain is becoming clearer and clearer. First, to establish himself as the leader, the world's leader for peace and against war, even though it's a lie and everyone knows it. Afterwards, getting closer to the enemies of the West, getting closer to everyone, to China, to Venezuela, to Brazil, to Colombia. Any enemy of the United States is his friend. Later, provoke to its North Atlantic Treaty Organization allies, especially to the one in charge, which is the United States, to leave NATO with any pacifist excuse. Do-gooder, saying that military spending is excessive and that Spain can't afford it, or any other falsehood. And from there, gentlemen, Ceuta, Melilla, and later the Canary Islands would stop being Spanish to be in the hands of Morocco. Mohammed VI knows that he can carry out this plan today. And the United States would possibly support him, and NATO would look the other way. But the one who would do the least to defend those territories would be Pedro Sanchez. Have no doubt. Pegasus, the forced friendship with Morocco, possible blackmail. They allow Mohammed VI to act quickly, like a change of mind, right? Something that Sanchez does very often. He did it with the Sahara. He changed his mind. He abandoned them without giving an explanation. He did it with Guaido, the Venezuelan president in exile. He changed his mind. And he went to embrace Maduro. He has done it with many. And now he would do it again with Ceuta and Melilla, saying that for world peace, it's better to let them be Moroccan territories and to have them join to the Kingdom of Morocco. And also, since the People's Party wins in both autonomous cities, all the better. Anyone who observes Sanchez knows that he's finished, that he doesn't have much time left, even with his deteriorating health, and that he is capable of anything. And the Kingdom of Morocco knows that as well, and Donald Trump. What has to happen will happen sooner rather than later. And I ask, who would defend the autonomous cities of Ceuta and Melilla, which have never been Moroccan in their entire history? Who would make sure they remain Spanish? When Sanchez handed over Western Sahara, no one lifted a finger to support him. Not even now. Not even in 1975, when King Don Juan Carlos did the same. That we mistreat from the peninsula, the territories, faraway lands that once belonged to Spain. Well, just ask Equatorial Guinea. Only the socialists go there to hide money in their banks. Welcome, friends. There's more. We investigate.
Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón.
For many years now, we've had the feeling that we're going as a country toward the abyss without stopping. We already know perfectly well who governs us, what he intends, and his partners. and that it will be very difficult to remove them from power unless half of Spaniards who never vote get their act together and go vote for a different option than the governments. It's not easy because we constantly see moves to disintegration, breaking up, dividing Spain, to Pite, Spaniards against Spaniards, now the regularization law of immigrants without any control, or the 2.5 million foreigners who will be able to vote in Spain without ever having set foot here or having paid taxes. That feeling of national emergency is something many of us have had for a long time, and it doesn't get any better. There are court rulings, there are setbacks from time to time, but they're just small blows. The path, Sanchez and his people follow it resolutely. Remember his first book, Manual of Resistance, he's putting it into practice. What's going to happen? How do we stop it? We want to shed light on so much darkness. Here we usually talk about problems and expose corruption, but it's necessary a bit of hope. And for that, every now and then I have a guru friend and a brilliant mind. I always say that if he were president of Spain, things would work wonderfully. But it happens very often. Parties aren't interested in useful people. They're looking for a different kind of person. Marcos de Quinto, how are you doing, my friend?
Very good, very good, very worried. Very worried about this country. But personally, I'm doing very well.
Let's see. You travel around the world, you know, and have information about many places. How is Sanchez going to end up? How do we get rid of him? Through legal means, since we're not violent here.
Well, it's complicated. It's complicated because we're dealing with someone who's capable of anything. And capable of anything, well, it means that he could even find some kind of excuse to postpone the elections in 2027. That is, he's capable of anything. And above all, I'm very concerned because we are witnessing the destruction of Spain. And I was talking earlier with a friend who was telling me that this is only comparable to 1808 when the empire was absolutely decimated and all the colonies were lost. Absolutely everything was lost. And I say it very worried because this government, what it has been doing since the beginning, came to steal. Right now, they're not worried about Spain, not worried about public services, not about infrastructure, but only concerned to raise taxes, to take money out of the Spaniards' pockets and take it away through the ECID and through a lot of things outside of there. To be able to do that with impunity, what they have also done in parallel is destroy the state at this moment, destroy the separation of powers, and take over all the institutions. For example, that is to say, never before has Parliament been in the situation it's in now. The person who is supposedly the state's third highest authority, deep down, it's as if she were Sanchez's chief of staff. In Parliament, laws are no longer debated. Everything is done by decree law. And the place where they really debate the laws is in Waterloo or in Switzerland or wherever. But here, there's no debate at all. Everything is imposed by abusing the decree law. And on the other hand, the judiciary, which is something they have to deactivate precisely so they can live off that impunity, well, they've managed to take over the prosecutor's office, the court, the general counsel of the judiciary, the constitutional court, which is not part of the judiciary but is somehow overruling it. And it really has few levers left to implement changes like letting prosecutors conduct investigations themselves, to end what is called the popular prosecution. All those kinds of things have been changed so they can keep stealing and deliver the final blow to the state. Quite apart from that, it's about destroying Spain. Well, as you were saying, this is causing a population replacement where Sanchez absolutely doesn't care, because possibly in the future, he will go live in the Dominican Republic or anywhere else. He knows the Spanish people dislike him, so he dislikes them too and says, I'm leaving you a little country, you'll see. Another topic that is also a tremendous disaster for Spain is politics, foreign policy, which is being conducted in a capricious and personal way. This is absolutely unimaginable in any country because foreign policy You have a state policy. It has to be a policy of consensus where those major lines of action have to be agreed upon with the opposition itself, so that there are no sudden changes in that foreign policy, no matter who is in power. Well, in foreign policy, this man has done whatever he wants. He also does it impulsively. Do you remember that he clashed with Milei? So, well, now he picks a fight with Argentina. And it turns out he gets angry with America and with Israel. This is extremely serious, because we are in a situation where we are defenseless. If the United States withdraws from NATO, which will very likely stop funding NATO, NATO will collapse. At that point, the United States will be able to form an alliance at any time. It would no longer be based on geography because missiles now cross continents. It would probably be formed selectively with certain countries. Great Britain could be included, especially after Starmer leaves office. Israel, logically, and maybe Morocco. And if the United States also has an alliance with Great Britain and Morocco, it has control of the strait, because Ceuta might not last very long in Spanish hands. And Gibraltar, which belongs to Great Britain, which is Spanish, but at this moment, Sanchez has given up. You know that the one who is negotiating the issues of Gibraltar is the European Union. He delegated it to the European Union, even though it is Spanish territory. All of this is absolute nonsense. And besides, he is the one making the decisions. They are not debated in Congress, nor does he inform the king about them. Just imagine what happened with the cession of the Sahara. It was one day, it just slipped away. Well, listen, because of Pegasus or whatever, it's Morocco itself that sends a letter in bad French or whatever, where it basically says that he'd given it to them as a gift. And he hasn't consulted it neither with his government partners, with Sumar, nor with his own party. He does whatever pops into his head. And he goes to China. He goes to China at a time like this, which is really pushing people's buttons to the United States. Well, I'm going to China. And with China, we have a trade deficit of 42 billion. Supposedly, he's going to China to sell something to the Chinese. No, he's going to China to offer himself, and he comes here to sell us Chinese products. On top of that, there's already a trade deficit of 42,000. He comes here to convince us that Chinese electric cars are really good. But this is the prime minister. He's ruining Spain. And he's ruining it because there comes a moment, for example, the Canary Islands, there's a huge risk in the Canary Islands. If right now we are at odds with the United States and so on, the European Union, if sub-Saharan people invaded the Canary Islands, in the Canary Islands, the Canarians are not protected. Who protects them? Europe? No. And Spain is going to protect them in the face of an invasion of sub-Saharans or Moroccans by sea? No. And would we ask the United States for help? Do you think the United States? No. What's more, if I were Canarian, I would ask the United States to make the Canary Islands an American state so they would be protected. Because if the Spanish government doesn't protect the Canarians, it's better to be a state just like Puerto Rico, American, with an American base, and that they defend me from invasion, since this government isn't. It's a disgrace. We're going to end up just like it was said back in 1808, where in some way the situation is going to be that we're going to end up losing Ceuta, we'll end up losing Melilla, we'll end up losing the Canary Islands, and besides, this man is capable of holding some referendums, non-binding or whatever, about the independence of the Canary Islands or expanded autonomy, etc. So he is destroying Spain. The situation is much more serious than it seems. And if there were people really on the left with a minimum of sense, well, logically, they would do something. Honestly, we're heading for the cliff.
But there are,
to have been so pessimistic.
no doubt. But Marcos, there are people who get paid to do something. We're not in that group, neither you nor I. The king, we feel he won't do anything, even if they take the Canary Islands, Ceuta and Melilla. The leader of the opposition, because he doesn't leave the institutions until democracy returns to this country, the European Union, which is nowhere to be seen. What's going on? Are we ordinary citizens alone?
Well, let's see. I hope that the king is aware of what we've talked about and of the danger that the country is facing. Regarding the issue of the opposition, I think that they have to start to do things, not speeches, not a joke like, look how good we are. I had a meeting at the Congress of Deputies, and what I told Sanchez or Bolaños is that it's no longer a matter of speeches. And the opposition, the main opposition party, not because of merits as an opposition party, but because of seats. That party controls 12 autonomous regions. It has institutional power. And I think it could use all the levers to alert the population about this, starting with a motion of no confidence that even if it loses in votes, could win, and could use it because it doesn't have a set time limit, to take and explain to the Spanish people what a complicated situation we are in. But unfortunately, I'm not talking about the People's Party, but I am saying Verheu specifically. He doesn't have enough backbone to deserve to become prime minister, because we're seeing it, because he backs down before Sanchez, and if he doesn't back down, he would file a motion of no confidence at this moment, regardless of what the result will be in terms of votes, because the situation requires it, and you have to fire all possible shots, all of them. And that's a mission for the opposition, and it's a tool that the opposition has and is keeping. For what? For when? Anyway.
Let's not even talk about the European Union.
The European Union, not at all. The thing is, the European Union is going to change. It's either going to change or disappear. In fact, as governments change right now in these countries, everything will absolutely change that situation. But the European Union is a union of selfish countries where, listen, any risk we have with Ceuta, Melilla, or with the Canary Islands, no one is going to say absolutely anything, absolutely nothing.
I go back to the first question because I want to give hope, and I'm sure you do too. Our duty, at least mine, is for people to know the real situation, not the one they see on the news. And that's what we're doing, and more people are becoming aware. What can civil society do, or other parties other than Feijós Pipe, to turn this around? You and I have talked about it more than once, about calling a general strike. That maybe if it's strongly organized without unions that won't be there because they get paid by the government, it would succeed. Is it an option?
Yes, let's see. The left mobilizes very well. As you know, the moment there was a change of government, we would have the streets on fire, and we would have the streets on fire because of the price of gasoline, because of the price of electricity, for whatever reason. And in the meantime, the unions and all the far left parties at this moment are not mobilizing because they are simply bought off with money, yours and mine, so that they stay quiet and calm, watching how everything is being destroyed. It's a disgrace. For example, here, nobody does anything, and we're seeing that there are protests. For example, in Ireland, society is organizing itself. In France, any little thing is enough for the yellow vest to come out and bring the country to a halt. But in Spain, it's more complicated. Well, you know perfectly well that, well, I'm standing firm in civil society. We've organized some large gatherings in Madrid, some of which you have participated in, like the one at Plaza de Castilla. I remember it perfectly. And right now we are considering a major mobilization for May, but I can't tell you more right now. But we would also do it in a different format than what we've been doing in recent years with our demonstrations at Cibeles, at Plaza de Castilla, or at Plaza de Colón. But it's complicated because very often you find that you don't have the support from parties or from a specific party that's always a bit more reluctant to go out into the street, or even from those media outlets aligned with that specific party, that if they don't get the instruction from Genova 13, they don't do it either, to promote those kinds of movements and acts. But anyway, we keep going like this. I'm optimistic as much as I can be. I'm optimistic because otherwise I wouldn't be fighting just like you are fighting. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing the things I do. And probably...
How do you manage to be optimistic? What do you hold on to?
No, I hold on to the fact that I'm going to fight because I have a 6-year-old daughter and I want to leave her a country at least the way I found it when I was young. With the effort of my grandparents, my father, all the people who pitched in to build that country, and I'm not going to try to let these people destroy it for us. And I'm optimistic, because if I were already pessimistic and said there's nothing to be done, most likely, since I'm already retired, I would just go to Turks and Caicos, or I would leave to the Fiji Islands or wherever, just to enjoy life and get away from here. But I'm staying in Spain, defending Spain, as long as I believe there are possibilities, even though things look really bad right now. But what matters first is that people are aware of the seriousness of the situation. And for that, we have to thank media like yours, you see, for making that effort. And I also try to participate in all the outlets that are fighting back. And instead of sitting back and doing nothing in the face of what's happening, well, I also try to help out, just like I'm doing now. And well, the more we do it, we have to achieve, really get people, not only to get outraged, but also go out to the streets, and that these people, they've lost respect for us, and I think they need to respect us again.
It can't be said any clearer. I stick with that call for May, with the idea of, besides being aware, taking action, protesting, showing strength in the streets, taking to the streets like the left does, are reasons for hope. By the way, I heard that the team of Maria Corina Machado, they had asked you for funding to cover their stay in Spain. I know you hinted at something in a tweet. Was that the case?
Well, it's something I haven't wanted to make a bigger deal out of it, and also elegantly, I've hidden the names of the people. But for me, what really bothered me a bit was the way they approached me. From some people who said they were part of Maria Corina's team, probably Venezuelan exiles who have been here in Spain for a while. And they more or less contacted me by phone through some mutual Venezuelan acquaintances I knew as well. And almost like the typical scam, huh? They start buttering you up. Oh, Marcos, what you're doing and how important it is and all that. And besides, Maria Corina really appreciates this. She'd love to greet you. There'll be a cocktail party on the 19th. So you have to come and be there, and so on and so forth. And after all that, after that pseudo invitation, then they come out with, well, on the other hand, we need you because there's money to cover expenses for this trip. And within this, for example, the rental of some armored Mercedes cars for transportation during these days around here, this could amount to about 10,000 euros, which we would appreciate from you. And so, of course, I say, well, does Maria Corina know about this or what? Because they were also talking about her Washington team. And I said, well, the Washington team doesn't have 10,000 for the armored cars. Did she come here without having them booked? That already seemed a bit strange to me. And then I doubted it. And once I started doubting and all that, they stopped inviting me, no cocktail or anything. Now it's just pay 10,000 to attend a cocktail party with thousands of people. I don't know how many others they fooled the same way, especially those already targeted, so that everyone would pay the same bill, or the same bill may have been paid several times. I have no idea. And simply, I say, I don't like that people could be, maybe not, but could be that people are trying to gain some personal advantage with this Venezuelan people who could actually be exiled here. And I wanted to make it public knowledge precisely so that...
Has Maria Corina's team called you? Have they said, it wasn't me?
Well, through third parties, Maria Corina's team was worried, and Maria Corina and her team, if they know exactly the person who was involved in this. Apparently, it's someone who used to be close to Leopoldo Lopez. And what I wanted was to warn her a bit, because a recurring issue for the Venezuelan opposition is the presence of people around it who have also tried to take personal advantage and that kind of thing, which I don't know if I should call corruption or opportunism, the kind of slick people who are always around and so on. And that can often tarnish someone's visit, whom I respect a lot, like Maria Corina Machado, and I think her people, those closest to her, should be aware of these things to prevent this from happening in another country during any other visit or whatever.
So you think she didn't know anything, or we want to believe that's the case, right?
Yes, well, I don't have any reason to think that if it's so badly done that she would benefit from it, because I think that when she came here, she already had everything organized from top to bottom with no loose ends left to tie up.
Have you met her?
No, I haven't met her, even though they already told me that she's really eager to meet you. Maybe she wasn't that eager to meet me, but they were the ones who really wanted to get 10,000 euros or whatever, just like that anyway. But, well, I see it more as probably a bit of trickery. I don't want to think it's a major corruption case, but rather something more typical of tricksters. The thing is, logically, I've been around for a long time. I've worked in many countries, and many of them very dangerous. And, well, so I'm always a bit suspicious when things come off as strange.
And you did very well to make it public. To begin with, good for her and for those who truly believe in change with Maria Corina in Venezuela.
That's my intention. Never, not to overshadow her visit, but quite the opposite, to warn her so that her team doesn't end up stained by people who don't deserve it.
My dear Marcos de Quinto, I hold on to the hope that you have. I cling to the same words too, that we have to change this, that we can't leave this country to our children and grandchildren, and we have to do whatever needs to be done. Within the law, there is still a long way to go, and let's see if someone does it, and if not, we will force them to do it. A big hug.
Hugs, Albert.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.
You already know our podcast, Castillon Confidential. Now we're taking it a step further. Our new news site is here, castillonconfidential.com. Exclusive interviews, current news, and the latest updates, all in one place. Come on, get to know us and subscribe. It's free. Don't miss anything. castillonconfidential.com, the information that matters. The truth unfiltered.
I want you to look at this image of a traffic accident. The vehicle goes flying, speeding, and it ends up there on top of a fence. The driver gets out, and there are children in that vehicle in the back seat. This can happen to anyone. It could happen to us. At that moment, you know that a reckless act has just been committed. Smoke starts coming out of the vehicle. The back part and a lot of smoke. The smoke comes into the car's interior, but you can't break the windows with your hand. You try with a stone and still can't. It's not easy to break a car window in any situation you might find yourself. Do it. Notice that this driver, this is a real image. With the car full of smoke, he pulls out a child. He pulls out another one. There are flames, since you can see them inside the vehicle, and they're still pulling them out. A third person who survives miraculously. And don't even get me started if on top of that, it's dramatic, especially if on top of that, you don't have a tool to quickly break the car window. You don't have something.
Castillon Confidencial by Albert Castillon.
All right, here's a game. Let's see if you can guess who one of our panelists is today. Let's listen to Fabienne from France, who gives us a clue.
Tell Seda that with that long hair, she should braid it. She's the pirate of the Caribbean. Let's go. How incredible. She has a mix. I'm mixed too, but she has a mix that's plenty for me. Come on. Great, great. It's fantastic.
Saide Chaling, how are you?
Well, very well. Good afternoon. Greetings. I don't braid my hair anymore because no. It's like it wouldn't look very good on me, but yes. I've had my hair in many styles. People don't know that, but if they check my social media, they can find out. I've even had hair down to my waist. I've had it yellow and even tangerine orange. I mean, I've experimented a lot with my hair.
That's why it's in such bad shape today. You know, it can't survive. Hey, you were sick in the hospital because of a problem with your foot. You were visiting and you sent me this photo. What our YouTube friends are seeing, it says in a floor of a hospital. Attention, I'll translate it for you. Watch your belongings at all times. Come on, they even steal in the hospital in Barcelona, seriously.
Yeah, besides, it was like the fourth floor. Because even on, let's say, the ground floor, you might say, well, yeah, it's possible, it's plausible, right? A fourth floor still makes me wonder. Things are really bad. In the decline caused by nationalism.
Well, but now with the mass legalization, this is going to be fixed because we will all be more at ease. Well, get ready, Saide. Since you're Spanish by adoption, today your testimony interests me more than anyone else's. But first, let me say hello, Jose Luis Rancaño, number one. How are you, my friend?
How are you, Albert? Glad to be here with you and Saide. And I want to clarify something.
Let's see.
Saide is not a Caribbean pirate. Saide is a Spaniard who fights against the Caribbean pirates, against the Chavistas, against Maduro, against the Castristas. He is a Spaniard who fights against the pirates in the Caribbean.
Yes, sir, and he is a fighter for freedom. That's why he is here as president of that alliance against communism. Well, things have happened, and I'm surprised to see how poor and how low the standard in politics is. For example, Scheinbaum in Mexico. You know, there was a shooting. We aired the footage last Friday. A Canadian tourist was killed, several injured. Well, Scheinbaum's solution to prevent shootings at the Mayan monuments.
Never. Except for yesterday. But since it happened yesterday, we have to have protocols that prevent it from happening, announcements, and at the same time, information, and at the same time, see if equipment is needed to be able to acquire the equipment. So there are, as you know, there are so many archaeological sites in Mexico, and well, that's what they need to discuss based on the experience they have.
That is, they are going to put up signs explaining what's being said, where it says no weapons. And that's it. And they expect that whoever comes with weapons will say, oh, I can't go past here because there's a sign that says no weapons. Scheinbaum is going to give us some very glorious days in the future, Rancaño.
Speaking of that, you've heard about protocols. The protocol that Mexicans should apply is to get her out of the way quickly. That is, in the next elections, let any other woman become president. Do you know what the real problem is, Albert? The hate speech that these guys have been practicing for years. Since they have to manipulate and deceive the people and they have to generate hate, especially among the poorest people, those who have the most needs. These are the ones who promote a false indigenism, which is completely false, which has nothing to do with history, but is based on hatred. In this case, hatred toward anything Spanish, anything associated with Spain. And that's what they should start doing if they want to avoid incidents like what happened the other day.
More pathetic politicians. It seems unbelievable, but Rodriguez Zapatero is campaigning in Andalusia, yes. Anyone you tell that Maduro's advisor who is being investigated in America and in Spain for alleged crimes is campaigning would say, come on, he should have a little shame, right? Even though that he should at least stay at home, but no. And he says nonsense like this.
I have learned many things from Andalusian women. You know that I have asked Wikipedia that I be included there in the history books and all that, right? It doesn't impress me, but anyway. Jose Luis Rodriguez Zapatero, Prime Minister from such year to such year, comma, feminist. He belonged to the Socialist Party. He governed for so many years.
It doesn't do anything for me. I'm in all the history books, whether they call me a feminist or not. Let's see if they'll end up saying Zapatero, drug trafficker or collaborator with drug traffickers, and then we have a problem. Hey, Seide, what's wrong with this man?
Well, as Napoleon Bonaparte used to say, if you see your enemy making a mistake, don't correct him. Let them keep taking him around on tour so they can keep messing up. Let them keep taking him around on tour. I think Zapatero must have some kind of condition, mental condition that has probably worsened with this whole legal situation he's in, which is quite a situation. pretty ugly. And I think that until the other day, he wasn't even aware of the huge mess he was in. That's coming his way. So he makes up these things. That's where he made up that Wikipedia story. It's just that he has, I think all communists have this problem. I am God on earth. And I am the greatest that has ever existed. The biggest, the most beautiful, the smartest. It doesn't matter that he has that face that Zapatero has. You know? Yeah, he's a man who's hard to look at.
Say it like that. Hey, there's an AI video I saved for you that you're going to like. Carlos sent it to me. I'm telling you now, it's not true, but you see Diaz-Canel giving a speech to all his people. Everyone is wearing Fidel Castro's uniform, and they're all 80 years old. And then this happens.
We've received the information that the Americans will intervene early this morning. We have to be well prepared to defeat them.
Damn, now is the time. I didn't think it was true.
And now what the hell do we do?
Run, get out of here! Now the attack is coming, hurry!
And everyone runs out, fleeing, trampling over each other. Let's see if it becomes a reality soon.
We're going to see it in the year 2026. I'm already starting to think about it, but I don't want to. I don't want to say it, but I'm already thinking about dates and everything. Seeing how the situation is, given the geopolitical situation, we're going to see it, and we're going to see them run. Flee just like Batista, exactly the same. He left.
Do you know what would be a good day for liberation? October 12, 2026, Hispanic Day.
It would be a good day, certainly.
By the way, Albert, Zapatero meant to say that he will go down in history. He would love to go down in history books, that he will go down in the garbage dumps or dung heaps of history. That's true, in that he's right.
He has a permanent spot there, eh?
Right next to Judas.
Yes, what we're hearing, Seda, is that the Pentagon has the military operation in Cuba prepared, written, designed, and ready to go. What they're hoping for is that dialogue will prevent military intervention, and Diaz-Canel says the people will defend themselves. Honestly, I think the military will enter Cuba and the people will come out to applaud them. Don't you think so?
How do you know? How do you know? You just have to take a look at social media for a moment. So you can hear Cubans saying, Donald Trump, when are you coming, Donald Trump? Come already. I mean, lots of Cubans in lots of places. The thing is that the communists, since they live in their fantasy, they think the people are going to support them. They're already forcing the poor to sign a commitment to the revolution, not to the homeland, to communism. So those stories, people are being... I send you a voice note so you can listen to them, so you can hear what people are saying at their workplaces, that they're being forced to sign for the revolution under threat of being fired. And now that's what they're doing in that nonsense, but they'll end up running away, and we'll see it this year. It's getting closer.
I'm with you, all the news.
Besides, I don't even think a military intervention is necessary.
No, but we have to have the...
We just need to have deterrence, or that the enemy, in this case Castro loyalists, are aware that the United States is there. But it's going to be something like that, Albert. I don't know if Sede knows it, like our own Welcome, Mr. Marshall, the day the Americans come into Havana, you know?
Completely. There's a video that's been circulating on social media. I've received it from many places. It breaks me, but at the same time, it shows how well-informed people in Cuba are, despite the power and internet outages. She is a very old lady, elderly, who remembers everyone, even Sanchez. She's Cuban, she's in Cuba.
Nobody knows anything about Cuba. I'm the one who knows. I grew up there from the time I was a little girl. What I saw, my mother and my father, I cry every day because my mother never saw anything good. My mother never had sugar. She was always crying, "Oh, where can I get sugar?" My mom used to say to me, "Damn it." There was never anything there, and there are still people who support that. There are still people who don't know what that is. I wish that the one from Mexico, the one from Brazil, Lula da Silva, that criminal, the one from Spain, that bandit, should go to Cuba or take their family there so they could starve and live in darkness. Damn it! When are they going to do something for that country? Help us, Donald Trump. Help us, Marco Rubio, and help us, Bukele. This old Cuban woman is asking you, Bukele, help us, help us, help us. For the Cubans, even if I don't get to see it, but let the children, the young people see it. Damn! So many desperate mothers who don't have a glass of milk or even bread to give their children. They think I don't suffer, I don't live anymore. Not by day or by night. I'm just thinking about when the day will come when they get those bandits out of there. Damn it! They filled the whole world with communism. They destroyed Venezuela. They destroyed Nicaragua. They destroyed where Milei is. I adore Milei. Milei, help us, please.
All right. Calm down, mother. Calm down, God. How strong this woman is. Have you seen how she describes President Sanchez? That bandit, that describes him perfectly, huh?
Yes. Also, people don't know what communism really means, Albert. Communism is an absolute disregard for the human condition. They don't believe in human beings. They despise them. The poor, they need them because they need to manipulate them. But it's a totalitarian ideology based on contempt for the human being, on contempt for the ability to make individual decisions, to progress, to have your own vision. And all of that, led by an absolutely depraved elite who use politics exclusively as an instrument for their own gain. It's the worst of ideologies, political ones. And what this lady is saying is simply a reflection of reality.
No doubt. In Cuba, there was the pedophile, Martin Ramos, Yolanda Diaz's friend, the one who founded Marea. You'll see Ima.
Well, they believe in that thing they call proletarian internationalism. And so that garbage means they have to protect all the scum of the universe in Cuba. Recently, one who was a member of the Black Panthers who had killed a police officer in the United States just died. The other day, I was looking through an ABC newspaper from the 70s. And already in the ABC, they were reporting in the 70s that the Cubans were training the ETA members in Algeria. So people don't think this is something that just started recently or anything like that. They've been using them. They take them over there. They use them to do their dirty work and their things. And from what I understand, this individual, he was protected by someone in Cuba. He was protected by someone in Cuba. And let's remember that in Cuba, the age of consent, sexual, just like in Iran, more or less. In Iran, it's 9 years old. And in Cuba, it's 12 years old. So he was in the paradise for this kind of evil beings. There's something significant that hadn't happened for a long time. And it's a clear sign that this tyranny was falling apart. The point is, they've handed over one of their own. Remember that we've said here that when Cuba is free, we're going to collaborate with the CNI, with the CIA, and with all the intelligence services in the world, with the FBI, with all the authorities, worldwide security authorities, to shed light on many crimes and many criminal figures who have been protected in Cuba, because in Cuba, there have even been people from the IRA, people from many terrorist groups, a lot of people who have been there highly protected. Let's remember that Cuba was a breeding ground for terrorism. From Cuba, terrorism was exported to many places in Latin America, in Europe here. There lives an individual whom I'll give you details about later, a known terrorist, a terrorist. Terrorists are like alcoholics, they never stop being one. Whoever says former terrorist, no, a terrorist, lives here in Paris. I'll give you more details later because that guy was involved in terrible things like murders and other things, and now he's pretending to be an opposition figure.
An opposition figure, my God.
Yes, an opposition figure. I'll share details later, but the main thing about this is that for the first time, and that's very significant, the authorities of the Communist Party, that means that it's falling apart. Remember that the FBI is already inside Cuba. I repeat, the FBI is inside Cuba working. So things are probably much more advanced than we think, because I never imagined that Cuba would hand over one of their own, because that individual is one of their own, that they were protecting him.
What you're saying is very important.
Now, Albert Seide, I want to reflect on something here with you. I know the situation that the Cuban people are in, just like I know the situation that the Venezuelan people are in, the Nicaraguans and people elsewhere. But freedom cannot be regained if there is no punishment for the criminals. The criminals cannot go unpunished. It won't be the top priority or the first priority in this process, which will be to regain freedom and provide the people with the tools and energy they need so that they can build on this freedom. But we can't forget, the criminals have to pay for what they've done. They can't go free and unpunished. They can't go free and unpunished. People who for decades, for years have torturing, killing their own compatriots.
Look, in that sense, whenever I'm asked in certain interviews, my gut reaction is to go all out. And when I say my body wants to celebrate, what I mean is to give them the maximum punishment possible. Not the death penalty, because the death penalty ends the person's life and that's it. But rather that person should suffer in prison. Of course, with all the guarantees, with all the things that a person should have in the free world, but that they remain imprisoned until the very last second of their life, and that they return every cent they stole. Then from saying to doing, there's a long way, and I'm warning many Cubans that we start getting used to the idea that maybe we want the wolf's head, but maybe we'll only end up with a few hairs, that's for sure. When democracy comes to Cuba, when there's finally a proper legal system, that's when we'll pick it up again. So I'm sending this message to my fellow countrymen. We're not exactly forgiving, but after 67 years, they should just go. When we have a proper legal system, we will literally, in the legal sense, go out to hunt them wherever they are. If we have to go after them in Russia or wherever, we are going to go after them. If there are going to be diplomatic problems, international problems, whatever is necessary to bring those people to justice. We'll get there, but for now they should go because the Cuban people need freedom.
Estrada tells me something and it's hard for me to believe, but he says it's true. Listen.
They interviewed a Cuban girl who was here in Spain when they asked her who she would vote for, if she could vote, when she could vote. And she said, Pedro Sanchez, a Cuban girl who comes from Cuba, who escaped from Cuba, comes to Spain to vote for Pedro Sanchez. And you want to convince me that if tomorrow or in a year or in 2 or in 3 there are elections in Cuba, the Castro party won't win them again.
Saide, what do you think?
Look, I just sent you an image and I ask you please to put it up. Some statistics just came out very recently about Latin American voters and how they vote. Obviously, the Venezuelan community votes without discussion or debate for Vox and the People's Party or the PP. And for Vox, it doesn't matter the order. However, among the Cubans,
in Ecuador, in Morocco, Ecuador, PSOE Morocco, PSOE Colombia, more divided, PSOE, PP. The country that votes for PSOE the least is Venezuela, of course. Argentina also quite divided between both. In the Dominican Republic, almost everyone votes for PSOE, of course. Since they live there, they have their money in the banks. And Vox is huge. Together with PP, the country where Vox is strongest is Cuba. But of course, that's a comparison. But Vox doesn't even run there. But anyway.
But what this is saying is that really, Cubans in general, there will always be some random leftist out there. In the Cuban opposition, we have people who say that the problem in Cuba is not communism. And you just stand there saying, excuse me, can you say that again? Yes, the problem in Cuba isn't communism, though you might say, but communism is what has ruined our lives. Unfortunately, that's just how the world is, as my grandmother used to say. To each their own, and for them, the flowers. And there are people, obviously, who support the ideology of Pedro Sanchez and all this wokeism and all these things. They think it's amazing. But look, I'm going to show you a video of a girl who must be 12, 13, 14 years old. They asked her, are you a revolutionary? A little girl, a teenager says, I'm not a communist. And she was a girl inside Cuba. So that girl was probably, from Cuban intelligence or or she's disconnected from the system. But the reality is that Cubans don't want communism.
I want to show you something, Rancaño, so we can understand what we're talking about, Sanchez. And now we come to Spain. Sanchez just said that the mass legalization of immigrants, he has been forced to carry it out as a consequence of climate change. He explains it to you. Don't laugh. He explains it by saying that Spain is a welcoming place. And of course, the droughts, the rising sea levels in the Sahel, which I didn't know had happened in the Sahel, and droughts and desertification about 1,000 years ago. But anyway, he says that caused by climate change, well, of course, has pushed those people, Morocco and Algiers and Algeria, to come to Spain. And that's why we have to welcome them, because it's a climate emergency. How do you feel about that?
Allow me, I'll answer you right away, Albert, but I want to turn for a moment to what our confidential source was saying about how the Cuban population would vote. After 30, 40 years of communism, no one in their right mind could want communism. If not, they should visit Eastern European countries. Let them freely visit all the countries that were under the boot or the yoke of the former Soviet Union and ask them about communism. They're going to have one of the best lessons, and we're back to Spain, we're back with the communists here. The point is, these people are communists too. This is an argument for idiots. Sanchez's sole aim is to alter Spain's voter rolls and have a better chance, or to have a chance to win, or to mitigate what I believe will be a wide defeat when elections are held. Now then, the goal that Vox has scored in the top corner is spectacular with this national priority thing. I don't know who came up with it, but they've scored one of those championship level goals. He placed his political argument first. People keep discussing national priority. They've been smart because they've copied Donald Trump's slogan, America First. And I think it was a good move, a complete success. That thing about...
We try to explain, we've been trying for days to explain what they mean. And it's actually very easy, because every day I come across cases that show me what national priority is. We interviewed Jose Maria Hurtado last Friday.
Well, I get the minimum non-contributory pension, $630. I pay $500 for rent.
What you have left to get through the month is 130 euros.
Yes. For us Spaniards, honestly, it's very difficult, maybe.
Another case, we've received a call from Antonio from Toledo.
After 30 years of paying into the system while working, I have a heart condition plus the after effects left by the stroke. They should have been paying me since the year 2020. They should be paying me 1,175 euros, but that's not the case. They started paying me 800 euros. Right now, they're paying me 1,135 euros or 1,035 euros, and I'm paying a mortgage. I've been paying a mortgage for 22 years, and the bank is also taking money from me.
If you allow me, Albert, I think Vox's strategy of putting nationals first has been a complete success. And I would like to make a few points to share with you and with all the insiders. When someone talks about national priority, it's what any family with some common sense. You invite whoever you want to your house. A mother or a father doesn't open the door of their house and sit someone at their table unless they want to. And of course, no one who could harm or be dangerous to them, their children, or their relatives. I work hard, and I work hard to try so that my family can have a decent life. But first, my goal is for my family to have a decent life. And if I can, I'll help others. This is the national priority. We've spent years applying criteria against our own Spanish compatriots. Criteria that can sometimes be discriminatory. They're nothing more than discrimination. It seems that if you're Spanish, you can't be poor. If you're Spanish, you can't struggle. And that's completely false, because we all have friends or relatives who have been in situations like these and who are discriminated against by the law. Current, that of all the parties, Albert, not just the Socialist Party. I know and I'm familiar with autonomous communities where the Popular Party governs, where certain types of aid go exclusively to certain groups. For example, the 14,000 euro maternity benefit from the community of Madrid. I also wanted to discuss what you mentioned, since they're already claiming it's unconstitutional. No, the Spanish Constitution says all Spaniards are equal.
Exactly.
Equality among Spaniards, you know. What you can't do is apply criteria that are discriminatory. And on top of that, it's a wide open door to fraud, like all this garbage about vulnerability, which is also profoundly illegal. Because it's a fraud. So that you can, to declare a person's vulnerability, you need to carry out a process, which has to be a serious process, where you have to verify a series of data that right now in this administration, no one, absolutely no one does it. But what's worse, Saide Albert, a decree law was passed that goes against the very immigration law itself without being debated in parliament. But this is an autocratic rule that simply pursues an electoral goal, but it's going to be chaotic for our country in the...
It's a full-blown national emergency. I'm interested in your opinion, Saide. You came from another country and now you're Spanish, but first we'll hear from Sofia and Gemma.
I met a girl on one of the trips I took to see my mother in Vélez, Malaga, whose husband didn't have a paycheck. I mean, she had 2 young children and was renting. She went to the social worker to ask for help, but they put a lot of obstacles and paperwork in her way, so she left feeling discouraged. But behind her, right after her, there was a Muslim woman, and since she left the door slightly open, she stayed and listened. They gave her everything. They didn't object to anything.
As for Spaniards, first of all, I've been suffering from it for many years. The Spaniards who haven't paid into Social Security because really the employers didn't register you, and still, even if you tried, they'd give it to you whenever they wanted. Social services are not for Spaniards. The Red Cross is not for Spaniards. I receive the minimum living income with a 44% disability when I should be rated much higher and receiving more.
Saide, when you arrived in Spain, did you benefit from these benefits?
They didn't give me anything because I never went to ask for anything. I didn't need it. I had a job and was living in the province of Tarragona at that time. I was involved in the artistic world, so honestly, no. No, I've never gone to social services or anything like that.
I want to bring it up to you because the other day, talking to Marcos de Quinto, whom we heard before starting the talk, he told me more in private. And he told me the thing is, most of them don't come in a regularization like this. They don't come to work. Or there are those who are already working and organize things well. In the end, they get their papers done, which we agree on. Or a group comes, especially North Africans, to benefit of the aid. What they have here, they never have in their country. I'm talking about schooling, 50% of the rent, free glasses, free dental care, 900 euros for a married couple as a minimum income, and 200 per child. That is, they end up with 2,000, 200, 2,400, around 1,000 and something euros, easily over 1,000 euros. For them, this is crazy. They've never seen this in any family.
But Albert, it's actually discriminatory towards Spaniards. Do you know how much they earn? I have people working with me in my production company who are highly qualified and are earning 1,800 euros a month. You yourself just said that these newly regularized people, some of them receive social benefits worth 1,200, 1,400 euros without working.
Exactly.
I said on your show on another occasion that when migration is purely for economic reasons, they are never ever a problem. They have never been a problem in the history of Europe, nor in the history of America, nor in the history of the world. We are facing a process that is different. This is not a process driven by economic reasons. Of course, people who have been working with us for a while have to regularize their situation. But what we cannot allow is for 1 million people to come in, to take our public resources using Spanish nationality as if it were some kind of instrument for fraud. They devalue our own status as Spaniards. They devalue our nationality. That's why I call it treason. But they're not doing any favors to their damn countries of origin because they don't subject them to pressure, to political criticism. Those are the countries where different policies should be pursued instead of the ones currently being pursued.
Yes. Let me tell you something. I know several people who are Spanish because they are of Spanish descent, but who were born in Cuba. Well, because of the situation in Cuba, they decided to return to Spain. People with a mother, with a daughter and her husband, a lady, already elderly, retired, and so on in every possible way, every other way. From every angle, from all sides, they've tried to get some kind of help and they haven't been given any. Those people are Spanish citizens. And with this, I'm not saying it just because I'm saying it as someone who was an immigrant and is now a citizen. It's not that Spain isn't supportive or that Spain doesn't want to help people, but it's just that this is more spread out. So since it's more spread out, there's one thing missing, and that's help with Spanish. That's the one you missed. What do they give them? I don't know, 300 or 400 euros more to help them speak Spanish, which many don't speak the Spanish language correctly. That's also something that exists. So it's unbelievable that people return citizens, and technically those aids exist, but they make it complicated for you. They make it confusing. Ask me for, I don't know, give me your great-great-grandmother's DNA to find out. And in the end, they're not really helping the people who actually need it. And I insist, Spain is not unsupportive or inhumane or any of these things.
Let's hear from Amparo. She has a message for you, Saide.
I'm afraid, my dear Saida, that right now the Vatican is so tremendously politicized, sold out to this doctrine, globalist, because you can't call it anything else, which has nothing to do with the Christians of old, with those who are older, like in my case. And really, it has nothing to do with Christ.
You mentioned in your last appearance here on the show the lack of support from the Catholic Church for Christians and Catholics in Cuba. And we all remember that Pope Francis was the last one who was there, and he only met with the Castros. He didn't go to see any opposition members. You remember, right?
Well, there was one opposition member who managed to get past the security line and beg the Pope to please help them, to protect them. They dragged that man away, beat him, and put him in jail. There was indeed a Pope who did things for the Cuban people so that Cubans could have freedom. That was Karol Wojtyła. John Paul II, he really fought against communism. But look, in that sense, just so you can see, Ambassador Mayhammer, the Honorable Ambassador of the United States in Cuba, Mayhammer, is doing an impressive job. With Caritas Cuba, and with the Catholic Church and with the Protestant churches to bring aid to the people.
Yes.
So I think the problem is the nomenclatura around, well, of this Pope who we know came from the wing of Francis and from the same ideological line.
Let's be optimistic. Let's have hope that every night the Holy Spirit, accompanied by the ghost of Pope John Paul II, visits the current Pope's bedside and whisper in his ear some important things he should already be doing, for example, on his trip to Africa, instead of meeting with bloodthirsty dictators who have been killing their own people for years. He should visit those regions where they kill, massacre, imprison Catholics. That's what the current Pope should do. To our beloved Episcopal Conference, I would say, not to confuse its followers, not to use demagoguery. We're not talking about an issue of compassion. We're not talking about an issue of solidarity. We are just as compassionate as anyone else toward those who are in need. We're talking about a strictly political problem, And if you allow me, I'll finish with one last message to big business, to this business lobby who are staying silent, who never raised their voice for any of the problems that exist in Spain. I would tell them to focus on creating the right conditions so that we entrepreneurs can generate and create jobs. To stop wheeling and dealing with political powers, because when you do business with political power, that's not entrepreneurship, that's not capitalism, that's mercantilism, and it needs to be fought against. And these would be the two messages.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I totally agree. Look, Ignacio has sent me some photographs. Pope Leo XIII is going to come to Spain. Well, in the basilicas, for example, the Basilica of the Conception in Madrid, there is an electronic machine like an ATM, and you can give a donation of 5, 10, 25, or 45 euros for the Pope's visit to help finance it. I'm saying this in case you want to go Rancaño Saide. If you want to go over there, you would probably keep 45 euros, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. What are you laughing at?
No, I wanted to do it because I've been thinking about my previous speech and I said, damn, I sound pretty anti-Catholic, don't I? I mean, no, and I want everyone to know, let all the news outlets know that all of that was said by a Catholic Christian, not very observant, but still a Catholic.
Yes, that's Jose Luis Rancaño. Well, last messages, gentlemen. Tony and Victoria are retired.
A retirees association, Astrubi 40, which is trying to... People who have contributed for 40 years can retire early at 63 without penalty. And, well, it really caught my attention because they're proposing a citizen's vote of no confidence, or to establish some legal mechanism that in some way makes this official.
Albert, many retirees know that their pension is lousy. And you know what? They say it's all lies, that they're not getting any help, that the poor are having a really hard time. They're having a very, very, very hard time because they're not giving them any help or anything. And that thing about giving them a small handout, that's a lie.
There are a lot of people having a really hard time in Spain. And then you see what the government is doing with our taxes. Latest messages, Susana from the newsroom. Tell us.
Greetings to you, Albert, and also to the panelists. And of course, to the insiders who keep sending us messages here in the newsroom, all your comments, which we will be reading as you send them to us. Of course, MC says, I think we're very mistaken. Begoña has much more power than we think, and we have to remember that Pedro is in the government thanks to Begoña's father. She can't be trusted. Jose Lopez says that Spaniards come first, always, always first. Also, Jose Escasoa, seeing these lines is scary. Spain, what's coming your way is quite big. And the fact that all of this is made so easily by just one man, it's really strange what's happening to us. Egley says that what Susana Diaz does is first to be scandalized by the hidden ballot boxes and then accept it, that her salary in the Senate is worth more than staying outside in the cold. This is what is happening right now. Jose also says that socialism is a factory of poverty for the people and another one to turn its leaders into millionaires. In Spain, it's plain to see. And here there are many, many people like Maduro, and you should realize that too. RJC says, I contributed for 30 years and I don't even reach 900 euros in my pension. Also, Mari says, my mother is 99 years old and has a widow's pension and level 2 dependency. The social electricity subsidy has been flatly denied. They have just denied it to us. The summary of that denial is that she is not considered vulnerable and she is 99 years old. Alberto Rosa says that a country's resources should first be allocated to its citizens, and then any foreigner who can contribute can be helped, and that they obviously can bring added value to the country. Jose also says today is Jose's day. He says what's surprising is how easily the president of the government acts, doing whatever he wants with no other branch of government checking him. And no one in the state stands up to him. Luisa also tells us congratulations on the show. I watch you every day from London and I never miss a single episode. To the panelists, the insiders, and above all to everyone who is part of this family, many Spaniards are struggling nearly in poverty while millions of foreigners live in Spain. But is no one going to stop all of this? Or at the very least, aren't they going to organize it? And we'll leave it here, Albert. Let's invite all our viewers to check out all our channels, whichever one they like the most. And above all, here in this podcast, they're going to be very well informed. Thank you, Albert.
Thank you very much. That message is incredible. That said, a 99-year-old lady doesn't get assistance because she's not considered vulnerable. Look, there are some lines right now at the NGOs that give out the vulnerability certificate, which is another document needed for regularization. And nobody investigates anything. Nobody asks anything. They just say, are you vulnerable? Here you go, paper stamp, and on to the next one, up to 600 a day. But not this 99-year-old lady. It hurts me because Ayuso posted a tweet the other day on Friday saying that what Vox was saying about national priority is a lie, that there is the same aid for Spaniards as for foreigners. I can't believe that Ayuso doesn't know that this happens. It's hard for me to believe it, Jose Luis.
Well, I think Ayuso has made a very serious mistake here, but I think the one who got it right was Vox. Vox has been completely right with their priority. National, I think it's a political success. And I think Ayuso's reaction is simply the reaction of a sore loser. I'd also like to add something, Albert. Many city councils run by the Popular Party are actively collaborating in this fraud. When the city councils are supposed to properly manage these processes and issue the corresponding certificates, and they don't do it with enough guarantees, they are committing an act of malfeasance. The Popular Party should once and for all clarify what they want to do with this issue. And if you allow me, a suggestion to Pascal, since he has brought up the idea of national priority, that he now pair it with the idea of a national emergency.
Yes, it is a national emergency.
It's so he knows what the role of the institutions is. And that when the institutions are underutilized or are used fraudulently, or aren't used for the purpose they were constitutionally intended to serve, there's no reason to support them. There's no reason to place them in a scenario where they couldn't be criticized. That is, if he adds the national emergency component, I think it would be twice as effective.
That's good advice. And to finish, a message that comes to me from Cuba. I'm sure you've received it too, Saide. From a teenage boy, 16 years old, imprisoned in Cuba for protesting, Jonathan David Muir. Listen to the message to see if it reaches the right person so he can get out of prison.
Jonathan David Muir Burgo, a boy who suffered there from a very young age because of fear, because of deep fear, the stress he experienced, and the traumatic moments, he developed dehydrosis on his skin. This condition was caused by two bacteria. One was the beta hemolytic streptococcus, which causes rheumatic fever, which thank God he didn't get. Another was staphylococcus, which made his condition critical and endangered his life. Today, he has been imprisoned for 1 month and 6 days in the maximum security prison in Canaleta, Ciego de Avila, in the province of Ciego de Avila, in Cuba. This young man was arrested on March 16th. And on Monday, March 16th, but on the 18th, he was supposed to get the first dose of Evertran to help with his immune system. He hasn't received it because he's in inhospitable conditions, in precarious conditions that, no, he shouldn't be there.
I see if we don't put pressure, it'll be like with Alexander, who got out and his image went around the world. We interviewed him here last week. After 5 years in prison, 400 minors. Every year, the Castro regime imprisons for protesting. Is there anything else that can be done, Saide?
Well, let me thank you, Albert, for the space you are giving to the cause of Cuba's freedom and to the cause of freedom in general. What we have to do is amplify on social media. Write to them, even if your councilman doesn't have influence. Write to your neighborhood councilman. Write to the European Parliament, wherever appropriate. Now things are starting to get amplified in different places and the Communist Party doesn't like it, the noise. For my part, I will try to make the necessary arrangements and calls to put as much pressure as possible. Because that boy, like other children, is a victim of communism. And communism, as you can see, you Spaniards who like communism and socialism, just look, even their own children will be imprisoned. And if their children depend on any kind of medication, they will take it away from them. Why? So that they die because they don't value life. From those who stand up to them and want them dead, really, Albert, thank you so much for what you do.
Do what you can. I know you will. Friends, it's a pleasure to have you here. Saide Chaling Chong and Jose Luis Rancaño. Thank you.
Albert, may I say something quickly because I heard you mention it yesterday on the show? I don't know the name of this guy, this socialist guy who had been given a cushy job. He held a position, maybe in the Nuclear Council, but I don't know what it's called.
Yes, the former manager from the PSOE.
But I was absolutely shocked by what he was earning. And I think it was because...
Look, his name is Mariano Moreno Pavon, and he was earning 250,000 euros a year when he left as manager, which is a way to buy his silence.
I know he's just one more, but I think that morning I couldn't even swallow my coffee. And I want to send a message from here, even though I'm not a big fan of the state or state structures. I do want to send a message to what I call the essential public servants, to the teachers, to nurses, doctors, police officers, civil guards, military personnel, and judges. To all those public servants who are essential and who do their work for their nation, for their country, for their fellow citizens, please help us fight these opportunists. And if you allow me to say it, damn opportunists, help us fight them once and for all. We need to get them out of the administration. There are more than 1.5 million of these opportunists in the administration. These key civil servants are the ones who have to help us. They are the first ones who have to sound the alarm every time they come across an official or one of these types who is occupying strategic positions with decision-making power and real influence. I ask you to help us to do it for your fellow countrymen.
Thank you, my friends. Big hugs to you both. Take care. There's more in a minute.
You're listening to Castillon Confidential.
You know, we have a channel that we just launched. In fact, Tush and my daughter and part of the family are leading it. Support her by subscribing. Also, it's very interesting. She always had an interest in the world of science and technology. And the channel is called Tu Cuerpo Sabe, a Tu Cuerpo Sabe. Take a look at the preview of the latest video published. It talks about the effects of space and zero gravity on humans.
I'm not just talking about floating or seeing the Earth from above. I'm referring to what happens within you. Because as soon as you leave this planet, your body starts to change. Not little by little, but constantly. Inevitable. You start to lose muscle. Your bones get weaker. Your brain gets disoriented. And even your vision changes. But the most shocking thing doesn't happen up there. It happens when you come back. This is what really happens to your body when you leave Earth.
A Tu Cuerpo Sabe. Help the family and Tushin, who many of you already know, to grow on that channel with such an interesting scientific basis. There are many videos, a new one every week.
You are listening to Castillon Confidential.
There was controversy last week about compliments. Well, controversy, you tell me. The compliments one of the panelists made to Zabache, and Llanos has left us a message. She gets compliments and she says she's over 60.
I think it's great that she accepts the compliments. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me. And of course, since apparently women my age aren't supposed to get compliments, I'm already 60. I was walking down the street and there was some construction going on. There were some fences up and there was a worker there. And I asked him, is it this way? And he said, no, it's that way, beautiful. And I was like, wow, it's been so many years since a worker called me beautiful on the street, and I said, thank you.
I sent him a message saying, beautiful. Well, it's the least I could do, right? What nowadays, 60 is the new 40. That's how it is. I mean, it's not an age to say I can't get compliments anymore, don't you think? It's another way to look at it. Let's see, Carlos, thank you very much for your encouragement, my friend.
First of all, a big hug, and it's a pleasure to listen to you every morning. I'm pretty disconnected from social media, WhatsApp, and everything. But you're always in my car every morning while I'm on my way to work. I'm self-employed, and while I'm on my way to work, you're there. I listen to you whenever I can, and if I miss part of the show, I catch up later in the day.
Thank you very much. There are a lot of people who listen to us during commutes, on trips, who listen to the show in parts, who suddenly catch up on the weekend with what they haven't heard from the week's shows. That's the good thing about YouTube. You can just pick it up and do it whenever it suits you. Even friends who are in the United States, and we have many, or in Venezuela, in Brazil, well, they have a different schedule. There are some who go to sleep listening to us while others wake up with us. It's wonderful. Well, there's a gag by Jose Mota that I find very funny, and Enrique sent it to us.
A man with his right arm in a cast seeks a woman with her left arm in a cast. Then Santolaya arrives so they can all attend a concert and applaud together.
A man with his right arm in a cast is looking for a woman with her left arm in a cast, and then Santolaya shows up. What bad company, Jose? Well, Jose Carlos sends us this AI-generated premonition.
I promise that Spain will never break apart and that Catalonia will always belong to Spain. Passport.
Yes, Agent.
Here you go.
The border is in place.
It's the correct one.
I'm very sorry that Catalonia has become independent from Spain, but I can promise you that the Basque country will remain Spanish.
Hello, documents for Mercedes.
Send it to your cell phone.
Thank you very much.
I'm very sorry that the Basque country has become independent and is no longer part of the Spanish nation. I have a meeting with King Felipe to toast our nation. As I told you, I was going to meet with Felipe VI, and that's what happened. From today, our new king is Mohammed VI. And I can promise you that our democracy will continue the way we had it in Spain.
Hey, that thing about democracy worked, right?
Exactly what he does when we don't see him. If when we do see him, he already does those outrageous things and does what he does. Just imagine. Lately, I was thinking, if he's been capable of putting votes in a ballot box to deceive his own people, what won't he do with the rest, right? And they still say there's no electoral fraud. Come on, please. Well, Titanic's artificial intelligence. The girl is Puigdemont, the guy at the bow is Sanchez, but there's a third one.
I'm flying, Pedro. Is it true that Catalonia is going to be a country?
Yes, darling, we'll be very happy together.
Let it be clear.
Torrente shows up and throws them both into the water. Good job, Torrente, good. And finally, you have to go check him out on his social media and always subscribe because they're friends and confidants every day. The Meconios have performed a wonderful song. It's new about Sanchez and Begoña. A little bit of the chorus, please.
In a cold and filthy cell, I don't want to go in there. Do something, Pedro. Don't allow it. I'm not Santos Cerdan.
Very good. Don't allow it. I'm not Santos Cerdan, nor Coldo, nor Abalos. Not with me, Pedro. Oh, folks, well, thank you very much, Maria Rosa Doldan, for your donation. Thank you very much, Mari Carmen Castillo. A huge kiss. Maria Remedios Lopez. Thank you very much, Maria Remedios. And Paulina Francisca Martinez. Well, as I said, don't forget about the little device we debuted today, the keychain, my rescue, or whatever they call it. It could save your life. Always carry it with you and use it. You know that if you send us an email, we'll tell you how to do it. albertcastillon7@gmail.com, and you'll have the best road safety device. Protect yourself. Friends, see you tomorrow. I'll be waiting for you in the trench.
And I know it. We're insiders, you're an insider, I'm an insider. We're all insiders. We're all insiders. But shh, only for open minds. And for people who are alert. From the trench, the bullets whistle and there's no way out. To get out there, here freedom has wings of wax. Albert Castillon, Susanna Gash. Tucci Castillon, ask for more, thank you very much. And with that, see you tomorrow at 8.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.